Raise your hand if you'd be willing to be a test subject of a COVID-19 vaccine still in preclinical trials. Raise your hand if you wouldn't. Hi, I'm Abby Chitakule, and today I'll be talking to you about why we need model organisms. It's important to know about model organisms even if you aren't a scientist. Model organisms help us understand more about human development, as well as what drugs we can or cannot tolerate. As a microbiology student last year and an embryology student this year, I have worked with model organisms on multiple occasions. And in preparation for this speech, I interviewed my microbiology professor, Dr. Adams, as well as used some scientific resources. So today, I'm going to give you 3 reasons as to why we need model organisms, but I'll first give you a short background on what they are and which ones are used the most. According to yourgenome.org, model organisms are non-human species that are used by scientists to understand biological processes. These organisms are usually easy to maintain and breed in a laboratory setting. Scientists at Adgene found that the 5 most used model organisms are the fruit fly, yeast, the house mouse, zebrafish, and the worm. I have personally worked with fruit flies in genetics, yeast in microbiology and Bio 1, and not mentioned in the previous slide, chick embryos in embryology. In my interview with Dr. Adams, we spoke at great length about her personal use of model organisms and how important they are. She told me about a time where she worked in a Vanderbilt lab with pregnant mice. She was studying kidney development at different stages of embryonic growth. Obviously, this involved sacrificing the mother in order to look at the developing organism. The key takeaway is she would have never had the ability to learn more about how our kidneys developed if she hadn't had the opportunity to work with the model organism. The first reason I have for you today is perfectly timed: vaccines. According to the CDC, the first stage of vaccine development is the exploratory stage, which is basic lab research. Then we move into the preclinical trials, which involves the animal work. According to the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, preclinical trials work to assess the features of a test or treatment. The research may aim to determine if a device is harmful to living tissue or the chemical makeup of a drug. Dr. Adams informed me that any drug or vaccine that has gone through the FDA pipeline has been tested on animals first. It's important to note that a lot of drugs tend to fail during this preclinical trial phase, and that's better than failing later in order to prevent harming humans or spending too much money on drugs that do not work. Moderna, a biotechnology company, did preclinical trial work in mice before they ever tested their COVID-19 vaccine on a human being. And that is what we should all want, because working on human beings is more ethically challenging than working on mice. The second reason has to do with cancer. Cell division cycle genes, or CDC genes, cause the cell cycle checkpoints that are deregulated in cancer cells. The way we know what induces these cell cycle checkpoints is from scientists working on yeast in the 1970s. Now we know that CDC genes are mutated in people who have cancer. The final reason is biotechnology, which is a growing field. CRISPR and its work with fruit flies is a prime example of that. According to Synthego, 75% of genes associated with human genetic diseases have a counterpart in the fruit fly genome. Without this discovery, the controversial practice of modifying the human genome would not exist. Know that scientists are aware of the ethics of this. They aren't just thoughtlessly going through organisms like the mad scientist stereotype. They have to be careful. There's even an institutional review board that makes it clear that every time you work on an animal bigger than a fruit fly, you have to get it approved. Scientists have to justify why what they're doing is important. PETA is the largest animal rights organization in the world, and they frequently voice their criticism over the treatment of animals in different settings, inside the lab and outside of the lab. Know that scientists acknowledge PETA, and they know it's a very important organization because there are instances of animal cruelty. But they also know how important model organisms are for understanding how our bodies develop and other drug and vaccine developments. They know that there can be a balance and that certain lines cannot be crossed. So today I've talked to you about what model organisms are and 3 reasons why we need them. I want to encourage you to think about medications you've taken in the past and how they might have come about. or consider a family member or a friend that has survived a health scare due to a drug or vaccine being developed. And if you're in need of a lab science credit, I encourage you to take Principles of Biology 1. You might get the opportunity to work with yeast. Thank you.